Okay, boys and girls, get out your maps and your history books because today we're going to learn why history is rhyming today with 1938 and why that's a bad thing. Okay, before we get to today's geopolitical lesson, if you like the work we do on this channel, please subscribe and also go to forwardky.com and sign up to become a free member. Mark Twain famously said, "History doesn't repeat, but it sometimes rhymes." And for those of us who know our history, today feels like a definite rhyme in a bad way. What we've got is Putin playing the part of Hitler from 1938, and Trump doing a really weak and stupid imitation of Neville Chamberlain from the same time. So let's talk about it. Okay, to begin with, here is a map of Europe in 1938-ish, the mid-30s. You'll notice Germany right there in the center, and you'll notice below Germany is Austria. And by the time of our story, Germany has already taken Austria for itself. So now it is part of Germany. And next to that, you see Czechoslovakia. And in the map, I think it's Czech and Slovak, but it's Czechoslovakia. And what Hitler was saying was that he wanted the parts of Czechoslovakia that were mainly inhabited by German-speaking citizens, called the Sudetenland. He wanted that given to Germany. He wanted that given over to Germany, and he kept insisting on it. And interestingly, he also said, if you just give me the Sudetenland, I will make no more claims on any land anywhere. All I want is peace. And so there was this discussion among some of the great powers of the time, France and Britain, about can we do this? What happens if we do this? And they wound up making an agreement with Hitler. So Neville Chamberlain went to Munich and made an agreement with Hitler that Czechoslovakia had to give Germany the Sudetenland. And so Hitler got what he wanted. And of course, we know the rest of the story. He wound up, like he always did, lying and invading the rest of Czechoslovakia and then Poland, and here we went. Why is this rhyming? Well, there's just the obvious thing that Putin goes to Trump, and Trump offers to try to get Zelensky in Ukraine to give up, one part of Ukraine to Russia, and then we'll all have peace. But there's a bigger reason that it rhymes, and that is this. In the Sudetenland, the Czechoslovakians had built fortresses. They had built this large ring of defensive positions because they were worried about an attack from either Germany or Poland. And so there was this defensive line facing west, and the part that Hitler wanted meant they had to give that to Germany. Well, they weren't stupid. They didn't want to do this, but France and Britain, in the person of Neville Chamberlain, forced the issue and made them give that part to Germany. The famous Peace in Our Time agreement that Neville Chamberlain came back and waved on the tarmac of the airport. So how's the rhyme? Well, here's the thing. Putin says he wants this one part of Ukraine and then he'll be satisfied. Well, guess what? The part that he wants is where the Ukrainians have built this massive defensive set of structures. It is an oblast, which is like a county or an area or a state within Ukraine. And the one that Putin wants is the one where they have all those defensive positions. It's the same problem. And Trump is trying to make it happen. Why? Because Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. And he thinks if he can stop the war, that he will, succeed. So let's look at a couple more maps. Here's a map of Czechoslovakia showing the Sudetenland, and the defensive positions are up there in the northwest, in between Czechoslovakia and Germany. That's the part that Hitler wanted and that Hitler got. Now let's look at a map of Ukraine showing the defensive positions. You see those? That's the part that Putin wants. And that's why we cannot allow that to happen. Because let's look at one more map. Here's a map of Eastern Europe. You notice Russia over there to the side, and there's Ukraine. There's Belarus, which is basically an ally of Russia. So there's no, in fact, Russia occasionally sends troops through Belarus. So that's not a problem. But there, next to it, is Poland, which is a member of NATO. If Putin gets the part of Ukraine that he wants, do you think he's going to be satisfied? No. He's going to try and take the rest of Ukraine, and then what? He'll attack Poland. And then we've got NATO having to come to the defense of Poland, and now we have a massive war about to break out. This is why this is a horrible idea. This is why the leaders of Europe rushed to the meeting with Putin and Trump and told Trump, you can't do this. This is why we have to be watching this. This is a geopolitical turning point. If indeed Zelensky is forced to give this up to Russia, we have a whole new ballgame in terms of what's happening in Eastern Europe and eventually maybe in all of Europe. So, there's the rhyme, there's the history lesson. Now you know what to watch for. So get your maps, pay attention, and let's hope that we don't have another Munich agreement with peace in our time, because it won't be peace in our time, it will be war.